Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video, and in this and welcome back obviously to the BD AFL Primetime Wrap. Just before I start off, reviewing the last games on Thursday night and on Friday night. Apologies for not having the Saturday review and the BD Footy wrap up episode after round 2. I was a bit. It was strange actually. I just wasn't. Just for some reason, just didn't feel like recording those videos at all throughout last weekend for some reason, for some unknown reason really, and of course I was focused on getting out the videos for the MotoGP season before all that, so I just didn't do those videos, and also didn't do the BD AFL Insider episodes. So I will try and get those to come back. Possibly, definitely the Saturday review and the footy and the footy wrap up, and then of course, hopefully I'll try and do the BD AFL Insider episodes, which it's quite hard, but yeah, so hopefully we'll be back on track hopefully at the end of this weekend. So we've got 2 matches to review today, which was the Thursday night game at Marvel Stadium between the Western Bulldogs and the Brisbane Lions, and then the Friday night game between Collingwood and Richmond at the MCG. Let's firstly go into the Western Bulldogs Brisbane Lions game. It was actually a good game. It was a good game. In the end, it was a low. So it started. It was a bit of a low scoring first quarter. It was more of a. I think the 7 commentary team pointed out it was just more like an early stage of a boxing match where both teams were sussing each other out. It was a bit of a low scoring first quarter. 1 goal apiece to each. But in the end, Brisbane led by a point at quarter time. And then the Bulldogs took control from there in the second quarter. They kicked 3-1 in the second quarter. It was 1 goal for. Well, Brisbane were wasteful with their 1 goal for compared to 3-1 from the Doggies, and of course the Bulldogs took an 8-point lead into half time. And then the game sort of really opened up. It really sort of opened up after half time, with both teams kicking 4 goals, one apiece in the third. As the gap really did stay at 3/4 time. At one stage, I think Brisbane kicked the first goal in the last quarter to put the margin to 2 points, and that's where we all thought, who's going to win this game? Where's this game going to be won and lost? Can the Bulldogs step up after the last couple of weeks? Is this going to happen again for them? It didn't. It didn't happen for them. They ended up kicking the last 2 goals of the game, one of which after the siren from Jamara Ugle-Hagan, which we'll get to in a minute. And they ended up winning the match by 14 points to get their first win of the 2023 season. I've got to say it was a great win for the Doggies. Copped a lot of flack in the first 2 weeks of the season, after the 50-point loss to the D's in round 1, and then by 41 points, I believe, against the Saints last week. So it was pretty good. It was pretty good performance, really, from the Doggies and the Lions. It's a bit confusing this season at the moment. Of course, got smashed against Port at Adelaide Oval. Then dominated most of about 92% of the game of last Friday night's game against Melbourne at the Gabba. And then of course this game, it's a bit iffy here and there, really, about where Brisbane are at right now. I know it's still early in the season, but yeah, we still don't know where they're at. So let's get to the other information here I've got here. So in terms of goals, Jamara Ugle-Hagan with a bag of 5 goals. Fun fact, from 5 kicks. So yeah, and I love the celebration with his first goal where he lifted up the shirt. Pretty much Nicky Winmar-esque from 1993, and appropriately almost 10 years ago. Oh, not 10 years ago. Wrong one. 30 years ago. I was 20 years off, but yeah, 30 years ago, when Nicky Winmar famously lifted up his shirt and did this with the finger, like that. Highly appropriately at a Collingwood game. So yeah, and he did it again after he was racially abused last week against St Kilda, and then this one you could tell and I was really impressed. I was so happy for him, kicking a bag of 5 with 5 kicks. He had really good support from everybody, even from the coach Luke Beveridge. Even Winmar himself had full of praise for him and for the club and for Bevo for supporting Jamara in that. So yeah. So I think I was really impressed with him. Impressed with how he performed, how the way he handled it, and he was really emotional too post game. In the post game interviews, he was really emotional about the whole thing. I remember he was interviewed with alongside with Marcus Bontempelli, and he was also in the post match presso with Beveridge after the game. So I love the way that Jamara really it really handled the whole situation, and yeah, so it was really good from him. To the others, obviously Lob with 2, Baker, and then Baker, Norton, and Williams both all kicked 1. For goal scorers for Brisbane, Gunston with 3. Fun fact again, all of them in the third term. And then Lockie Neal, Cameron, Rayner, and Hipwood all kicked 1 one in the game. So as I said earlier, the goals were few and far between, really, between both sides in this game. The best for the Doggies, not surprisingly, Bontempelli. He was probably probably he and of course Ugle-Hagan were the main reasons why they won the game. Bontempelli, obviously, we all know what he can do, and he really did turn it on in this game on Thursday night. Treloar, Ugle-Hagan, McRae, English, and Caleb Daniel. And then Brisbane's best, obviously Lockie Neal, Ashcroft, Starcevich, Dunkley, Gunston, and Harris Andrews. The leading disposal getters on the ground for the Bulldogs, Bailey Dale and Jack McRae both had 30 touches. Liberatore were 29, and Bontempelli and Treloar both had with 28 touches each. While for Brisbane, Lockie Neal, not surprisingly, led in that front with 31. Josh Dunkley with 24, Ashcroft with 23, and then Andrews with 21, and Brandon Starcevich with 20 touches. So the injury, only one injury to come out of the game. That was from the Bulldog side of things, with Josh Bruce is suffering a hand injury during the game. Maybe some reports on that during the week, but I haven't heard anything about that. So that was the only injury to come out of the game. For the subs, Robbie McComb replaced Rory Lobb during the last quarter, and Noah Ainsworth replaced Ruckman Darcy Fort strategically. I think it was more of a strategic sub, to be honest. I think it was during the third quarter. The game was played in front of 23,665 at Marvel Stadium. A couple of fun facts here. So about the game, after this game, it is the third season for Brisbane under Chris Fagan that they've started a season 1 and 2 after 3 games. They did this in their first season under him in 2017. In 2017, that year they won the Spoon. And then they did it again most recently in 2021. That was the year that they just scraped in the top 4, but they got knocked out in straight sets against Melbourne, against the 2 grand finalists from that year, Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs. Appropriately, the Western Bulldogs they versed just the other night. So yes, and then the other fact here, still can't believe this. Jack McRae, this is his 100th consecutive game gathering 30 plus disposals. Absolute remarkable consistency from Jack McRae, and he's one of the more prolific ball gatherers of the last 10 years. I think he's been the last 10 years, definitely, and So yeah, just unbelievable consistency. But yeah, as I said, back on the Brisbane side of things with that first one. As I said, their season is a bit confusing. I mean, they got smashed by Port Adelaide. Then they dominated about 90% of the game against Melbourne, and and it wasn't like round one. They were within like 2 points at one stage in that last quarter, and when it was for us to answer, who's gonna want this game more, the Bulldogs just wanted to win more than Brisbane, and that is just confusing. Because even I said that they are genuine lock for top 4 pre-season, and they've started 1 and 2. Now, it's not all a worry because obviously they still have a lot more matches at the Gabba during the year, and then basically and we saw what happened in 2021. They started this exact same way, albeit their first 2 games. In 2021, this season, loss. And they still made top 4. So, but only just, as I said. So, you never know. But it's a bit confusing, really, for Brisbane, and it's gonna be a tough and of course it's gonna be a tough one now, considering that their next opponent is gonna be Collingwood, which I'll get to their game against Richmond in a bit. But highly appropriately, obviously, and then just thinking about it, the Bulldogs' next game is against Richmond, which I'm about to review that right now. So yeah, and I won't be surprised if, even though Richmond do have those big ins in Short, Martin, and Hopper coming next week, which I'll explain to in a bit. I won't be surprised if another half tip the Bulldogs, because just to gather some just to continue on from their momentum from the win the other night. So it's a it's a bit of a happy place down at Whitten Oval again for the Bulldogs after the other night. Moving on to last night, Collingwood and Richmond, which was one of the most eagerly anticipated matches of the season so far. Obviously, Richmond, with the sort of changes that they had, and then Collingwood with their dynamite start of the season. Everyone thought this was going to be one of the matches of the season, and it sort of turned out that way, sort of. Or sort of wasn't. It was sort of both either way. Collingwood got off to a very fast start. Getting in the first quarter with taking a 2-goal lead into quarter time, but for inaccuracy, it could have been a lot more. They had 8 scoring shots to 1 in that first quarter, but it was only 2-6. So yeah, it was pretty boring in the end. And then the second quarter, it was the goals were at a premium. In the second quarter, only 1 goal was scored, and that was from Collingwood. 1 goal. It was very low scoring third quarter. Only the 3 behinds to Richmond. 1 goal 4 to Collingwood, but for some reason Collingwood extended their lead to, I'm trying to think. I think 19 points, I believe. Yeah, 19 points. Extended their lead to 19 points at half time. And then much like the previous night, the Doggies versus the Lions, the game sort of opened up in the third quarter. Richmond kicked the first 2 goals of the third term to get them back to within 7, and then Collingwood answered. I think 3 in a row. I believe. I think it was 3 in a row. It was 2 in a row, and then Collingwood answered back with the next 3. And then Richmond answered back again, and then Collingwood answered back. So it was a quarter where it had 7 goals, 4 to Collingwood, 3 to Richmond, but that inaccuracy was still a bit of a problem with them kicking 4 goals, 5 to 3 goal to only the 3 goals 2. So yeah, but still, it was a 18-point lead, I believe it was, for Richmond for Collingwood, at 3-quarter time, and then it looked like, and I think Richmond, with their dominance in that last quarter, I believe, in my opinion, I think it was more Richmond's ball really than Collingwood in that last quarter, and if they had really got their accuracy inside 50 right, or so to speak, kick the goals that was needed, they probably could have maybe perhaps do what they did in round 1 and just snatch the game, or something like that. But excuse me, but it wasn't to be in the end. Even though they kicked 3 goals, 3 goals, 2 again. 3 goals to only the 1 goal from Collingwood in the last quarter. It still wasn't enough, and Collingwood got over the line with a 14-point win to maintain their unbeaten start to their perfect start to the season. So moving on to the goal scorers for Collingwood. So Jamie Elliott kicked 2. Was the only multiple goal scorer for Collingwood, and then Pendlebury, Myercheck, Johnson, who was in for his first game of the season, looked pretty lively. He kicked 1. Bobby Hill, Josh Dacos, and Dan McStay all kicked 1. While for Richmond, Jack Revolt was the only multiple goal kicker for them with 2, and then Mansell, Clark, Bolton, Lynch, and Ross all kicked 1 in that game. The best for Collingwood. The best for Collingwood, Jordan De Goey. I mean, he had one of his best games for sure. I mean, 35 touches, and if he kicked straight, all 3 of those behinds that he kicked, on his best day, all of them could have been goals. So it could have been better for him, but it was he was definitely the best out there for him. And then the two Dacos brothers, Josh and Nick. I won't be surprised if I were to do Brownlow picks, I think he would either have 9 Brownlow votes in these first 3 games, or since De Goey had a great game last night, I think he'll have 3 in round 1, 3 in round 2, and I think maybe at worst 2 in this game. So that means that he will have 8 Brownlow votes in the first 3 games. So just to understand that he is definitely a Brownlow favourite in his second year, I might add as well. So yeah, more to talk about between those 2 later. Then the other one's still side bottom. Billy Frampton in for his first game. I think first game of his new club. Performed great in defence for the Pies. Tom Mitchell and Jack Crisp were the best for the Pies. The best for the Tigers, of course, were Baker, Taranto, Rioli. That is, I would assume, Daniel Rioli. Bolton, Vlosten, and Jack Ross were all the best for Richmond. The leading disposal getters for Collingwood, of course, as I said earlier, De Goey, the best with 35. Nick Dacos at his ball-winning best yet again with 33. Tom Mitchell with 30. Josh Dacos with 28. And Jack Crisp with 25 disposals. Leading disposal getters for the Tigers, Baker with 32, Taranto with 29, Rioli with 25, and then Trent Cotchin and Jack Ross both with 23 touches each. No injuries to report for Richmond, but there were a couple for Collingwood. Of course, Myercheck I think at one stage came off with the blood rule. And suffered a knock to the face, but I believe he played out the game. I think quite well. Cameron as well. He came with a knee injury, which he got scans for today. We have no idea, and I think it's reported that he's going to be out for at least 8 weeks, with that injury, so it means that their tall stocks are pretty much slim to none, pretty much, because Mason Cox, he's going to be out for at least another, from what I've heard from reported from Channel 7, Channel 7 News, I think it was about 3 to 4 weeks, I believe, another 3 to 4 weeks out. And then there's another one that was out with 3 weeks with a back injury, and there's another one and then there's a fourth one who hasn't even played yet, is gonna have to be considered to debut for the match on tomorrow, next week against Brisbane up at the Gabba as well. For the subs in this game for Collingwood, Josh Carmichael replaced, of course, Darcy Cameron in the last quarter after he got injured, and for Richmond, Noah Cumberland replaced Samson Ryan at half time, and he was really lively as well early in that third quarter. Was Cumberland involved in a couple of goals early in that third quarter. It just looked pretty lively there for the Tigers. The game was played in front of not surprisingly, a massive 85,241 at the MCG. Which was, I think I read somewhere during the Channel 7 telecast, I believe it's the 200th time that a VFL AFL game has gone over 80,000 plus, or 85,000 plus, for a game, which is astonishing, really, in the history of the MCG. That I said, the history of the MCG, 200th game. This is the 200th game where it got over 80,000 plus to a VFL AFL game in the MCG. So that is another milestone for the G. Some other facts as well. The most obvious one, of course, is the first time since 2011 that Collingwood have started a season free and zip. That year they was still under Mick Malthouse, and that year they made the grand final. Who knows? Yeah, and this one actually, it was surprised me actually when it came up during the 7 telecast of this game last night. It came up during halftime. It said it was Richmond's lowest halftime score at the MCG since 1997. Absolute bonkers, really. So it was pretty, and it was also, and it was a bit bittersweet in the day at night for Collingwood all around. After it was announced pre-game, I believe, that Jeremy Howe, who suffered that horrific forearm injury a couple of weeks ago against Geelong, unfortunately it was reported that he's in for surgery. He's back in hospital again after suffering infection, which he said he's in good spirits, and he labelled that the worst week of the hardest week of his life. He said on social media. So that will probably set him back in his recovery, as Craig McRae said in his post-match presso. So I believe, I think for me, I wonder if, because I think it was confirmed. I think some people said last week that it will take a good 3 to 4 weeks before we get a good guideline into when Collingwood gets a good guideline into when Howe does return. I think they'll send him back maybe an extra week, so maybe about another 4 or 5 weeks before it's confirmed really how long he's going to be out for. But hopefully it's not going to be too long. Hopefully it's not going to be too long for Collingwood supporters. So Collingwood fans will be happy. Happy, obviously. They're happy as picking shit that they're free and zip, which biasly for us as a supporter I don't like. So that's pretty much the end of this episode. So like this video. Shares to anybody who's a Western Bulldogs fan or a Collingwood fan or something like that, or just an actual AFL, just a usual AFL fan. Comment down below what were your thoughts on these two games. Was there anything other thing that I missed about that game? Love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. And one last thing, somewhere down there, click on the big red button just labelled subscribe. But until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later, and wherever you may be, may the sun or the moon shine on you this weekend.